Hello, everyone, and welcome back to One Soccer. I'm your host today, Josh Deming, joined by my colleague Alex Gonged-Ruzik. I apologize right off the bat for the voice. I've been battling a cold, and yesterday's screaming at the TV while we watched the game did not help, plus a little buck and dough at nighttime. So I apologize for my voice. Hopefully you guys can power through it. I'm trying to. But welcome to the stream. This is the morning after stream or afternoon after stream. Depends on what coast you're in. As Canada defeated Trinidad and Tobago yesterday 2-0 to book their place in the 2024 Copa America. Alex and I are here today to discuss it with you guys, get your thoughts, opinions, and I'm excited just to kind of hear what Alex has to say. I haven't chatted with him too much yet, but obviously it was not the prettiest result. Well, it's a nice result, but it wasn't the prettiest performance to get there. But first things first, Alex, I'm assuming you're feeling better than I am, and I hope you're doing well today.
Yeah, I think my voice has held up decently. So let's see how that goes. But I mean, it wouldn't be a morning after stream if you weren't, just a little. So the voice sounds a little groggy, or you're still waking up. And no, I mean it was definitely quite the eventful Saturday. Myself, I went to 2 live games. I was at BC Place all day. I arrived at 11, watched some Whitecaps FC2. Then I watched some Canada there. Then I watched Whitecaps there. I was at Peace Place for like 9 hours, which was quite surreal. But no, definitely quite the day for football. And you know what? Canada's going to a Copa America, so I think that's the exciting thing. No matter whatever you think of yesterday, what do you think it'll teach us about Copa America? What do you think it teaches about this team, Mauro Biello? You name it, you're going to Copa America. I think that's the big thing to not lose sight of in all this.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how you got there. Ollie put out a nice tweet yesterday saying that Canada qualified for their first World Cup in 36 years. They've now qualified for their first ever Copa America. They're co-hosting the 2026 World Cup. I'd like to add to his point and say that we've never had more Canadians playing over in Europe, playing for some of the biggest clubs in the world, Inter Milan, Bayern Munich. Like, it's a fantastic time to be a Canadian soccer fan. And it's incredible that we were able to achieve this, because I do think it would have been a big setback for the program to not qualify for this Copa America. And now we have a guaranteed date with Messi and Argentina. And I saw a fact today that said in 3 matches that Davies has played Messi, Davies has never lost. So, but I want to hear from you guys in the chat right now. There's 40 of you guys joining us today. Drop a like first off if you are just joining, and get your questions in and let us know what your thoughts were on the game. And I like this question here already from Dave, and says, what should the expectations be for Copa? And I think it's funny because we've barely ever talked about this, Alex, mainly because we didn't want to jinx it. It was hard to look past the Trinidad match and talk like expectations and, what you want to see out of Canada at the Copa America. But we finally qualified officially, so we can talk about this. So I want to, right off the bat, knowing that we have our group with Chile, Peru, and Argentina, one juggernaut, it's Argentina, the world champs. It's going to be a tough team, but the other 2 are in pretty difficult spots right now in their squad, their current form. I don't know. What do you think the expectations are for you? I would like to say, I don't know. Is your expectations to get out of the group? What do you think, Alex?
I think points.
Should we go for
points and good performances. Because look, I think the beauty of it is you got a good draw for what you want. You want competitive tests. You avoided any of the CONCACAF teams. I think in theory, if you're trying to advance out of the group, you maybe would have wanted another CONCACAF team because you're confident in your ability to beat those sorts of teams. But I think if you're Canada, you want tests. And I think the fact that you got 3 South American teams, because of that, I think for me, the expectation is points. I think you want to get at least a point or 2 points, because look, the Argentina game is a wash. I think that, given what's going to be at stake, opening game, you have to remember this is the defending Copa and World Cup champions.
Yeah.
They're still in great form. Even against El Salvador this past weekend in a friendly, they're missing Messi and they just cruise. Like, that's the scary thing. They never really seem to be getting out of first or second gear unless they need to. That game's going to be a wash. That game's going to be a learning experience for a lot of players, just seeing the level of a top national team. Peru and Chile, though, I think it's something where this is a good chance for Canada to learn and apply some of these past tier 1 tests they've had, like Uruguay in 2022, Japan twice, Belgium, Croatia, Morocco, as we've seen. And Peru and Chile at this moment, they aren't in the best of times, like you mentioned. Peru's kind of gone past their golden generation from 2018 and 2022. They've been, gone through some coaching change, a bit of player turnover. I think it's something where of the three teams, I'm looking at them, but also Chile's not in the greatest moment either. This isn't the Chile team of 2015, 2016. Kind of feels like both two teams are going to be fighting to get one of CONMEBOL's World Cup spots, even despite the addition of a few extras. Because it feels like right now it's this continent's Argentina, Brazil, Ecuador, Colombia, Uruguay. Those kind of feel like the big five right now, and these two teams are on the outside. So look, I think if you can get points, so like maybe 2 draws, you're very happy. 1 draw, you're content. You get a win, I think you're doing very, very well, and I think that should be the expectation. And of course, you get out the group. That's a huge bonus because you need to finish top 2, which is a big ask.
Yeah, I would say my expectations is just, I guess, no matter what happens, just know that Canada competed. I want to see them compete in all 3 games. If they could grab a point, if they could grab a win, that would be massive. These are tough nations. These are nations that, yes, they're not in the great times, but they still have some quality players. They're experienced in these type of tournaments. They play in Copa Americas obviously all the time. They're South American nations. So yeah, I just want to see Canada go in there and compete. Hopefully pick up a point. Hopefully get an upset. If they make it out of the group, that's icing on the cake. And anything from there, you're playing with house money. But Alex, let's rewind a little bit to the game itself. So I saw a lot of criticism about Biello. I mean, there's a few comments in here saying that he's out of his depth. Canada didn't look overly comfortable, I would say, at least in the first half. However, at the end of the day, they got the job done. Do you think, due to the fact that they won, Biello has an opportunity maybe to get this job full time? Or do you think that maybe to really take a look at what he's made of, the Copa America, he's going to have to do something special?
I don't think this changes the perspective, because I think ultimately what was clear yesterday, and I think this is, again, at least it's nice because I feel like this has kind of been the vibe I've been going with for the last few months. What you saw yesterday was the more talented team won. Plain and simple. It wasn't like, this wasn't a result where tactics ended up winning the game. This wasn't a result where some sort of master game plan. No, it was just overall, it was 2 teams that went at it, and at the end of the day, the more talented team won. And that's just, look at the goal that Canada scored after, they had chances, and it was just a moment of Tajon Buchanan finally beating a guy and showing that quality that he has, but struggled to impose on the match all day long. Ike Ugbo showing what he can do as a number 9, back to goal, lays it off into space for Larin, and Larin just finishing. And that was the difference. He got that goal. Trinidad and Tobago, I recently just shared the XG. They didn't have more than, they finished the game with 0.68 XG. Their best chance was a 0.21 XG chance, the Levi Garcia breakaway. They just ultimately, it was a battle of one team's quality showing it in the key moments, and that's the difference. And I think for Canada, this didn't teach us anything about what Biello could do tactically. I think he got a few things wrong, and then he didn't adjust them. But at the end of the day, they were going to win this game. Like not say they were always going to win this game, but there's a reason why the odds were 60-70% in their favor, because all they needed was a moment of 2 of quality, kept the door shut defensively. You're going to win games. So I think this is something where we can dive a bit more in depth from what we've seen of Biello. But this didn't give me bonus points in his favor. This was just the team. He put out the right team in terms of the squad selection, as we mentioned. But the more talented team won. Canada's going to Copa America.
I think it's funny because when we talked about how Trinidad was going to set up, they were always going to set up in a low block. They were going to defend, and they were going to hit on the break. And that Garcia chance was like the dream opportunity. A kick and run, uses his speed. If they were able to nip that goal right there, that you could maybe saw something like to that Jamaica and US game where they would have basically just completely sat back. They didn't even need to put any bodies for it because they would have had to lead. It could have maybe changed things, but in the end, it didn't happen, and the quality was eventually going to come through. And I want to focus on that a little bit, mostly on the Jonathan David for this reason, because my predicted starting 11, I got 11 out of the 12, or sorry, I got 10 out of the 11 players, but I went with the wild card and throwing Chouanier in the middle, which at the end of the day, I probably knew wasn't going to happen. But he ended up going with Jonathan David in the middle, which allowed Ike Ugbo to squeeze into the starting 11 alongside Kyle Larin. What did you make of David playing in the 10? I thought he looked comfortable there, and I've always said when you see Jonathan David at his best, despite being a striker, he likes to be on the ball. You see him drop in space, you see him drop into these pockets, he wants touches. And some of the games that I notice where he's at his best is when he has those 40, 50 touches instead of having games where he has 20, because he's a frustrated striker. He's a little bit of a frustrated striker when he doesn't have the ball, unlike Ike Ugbo, who can go 15 touches and he could score 2 goals. It's just the way Ugbo is. And there's a lot of people talking to me yesterday complaining that you didn't notice Ugbo in that first half at all. And I said, well, if you watch his games at Sheffield Wednesday, you'll notice that he will do that. You will not notice him at all, but you better believe if an opportunity pops up, he's the right type of striker to put it away, where I think Jonathan David likes more of the ball. So I think playing in that 10 almost suited him. He's very good. We saw him take a couple shots outside of the box with his left, with his right, a couple key passes in there as well. He got the assist in the final goal. So Alex, did you like him in the 10? And do you think this is an option going forward, considering there's no natural 10 on this roster right now?
I mean, I always liked Jonathan David in the 10 because of his awareness, because of his space. Like, I think he's someone who he finds space well, and you get him involved in those areas. I like it. I think, yeah, really the bigger issue is less David in the 10. It was just more Larin and Ugbo together. Because I think the one thing that was a bit clear is that they were kind of occupying the same spaces. And it did end up paying off on the goal. But that there were just a lot of times in the match where it just kind of felt like everyone was in each other's space. I've actually got a screenshot here. Let's see if you can. It pops up here. I just took this screenshot because I thought this was curious. I don't know if you're able to see, but the front three, look where they all are. They're all just on a straight line across the back three. And I think that was something where we saw way too much in this game, where that the front three was, all together. And I think that's where I didn't like David in the 10 as much, because naturally he sometimes has those instincts to play off the shoulder. And again, that works if there's one lone striker and he can kind of get that freedom. But I did feel like the three of them was too many cooks in the kitchen. But then we also did see the qualities of them in some moments, like David's ability to find space, Ugbo's ability to impact the game with little touches, and Kyle Larin, even though he missed a big chance earlier in the game, even though he was very quiet all game long, it was probably one of the best candidates to get subbed in 60th minute. You give him one good chance, he puts it away. And so yeah, I think what it shows is that maybe going forward, there's potential for different partnerships between the two of those three. But I think just ultimately, I think they got away with it against this game because, TNT were sitting so deep. But I think this game would have screamed out for another midfielder or another guy with speed, right? Like, you look at the difference that Schaffelberg made when he came on and was able to stretch the defense versus, Ugbo and Larin and David, who are all kind of trying to get into space and get in drop deep. But we also, on the flip side, saw those other things they can do.
So I'm curious what you would look to do to fix that going forward, because the oppositions we're going to play in the near future are going to be drastically different than Trinidad and Tobago. They just simply are. So I do agree with what you're saying, and I do think when we eventually play these bigger teams, you're going to need a proper 3-man midfield. This wasn't a proper 3-man midfield, just given the fact that how Jonathan David was playing. So are you saying that basically Larin, Ugbo, David just simply can't play together? You're going to more than likely have to drop Ugbo to go with the 3-man midfield and keep the 3-5-2? Is that what you're saying to go forward? Or what would you want to see under Biello leading into the Copa America?
I think you either have to pick. You have to. I just think, 3 strikers straight off the bat. I don't think is gonna work, and I think that's also for them because, again, they spent most of this game looking for service that just didn't come. And again, like we said on the goal, when they got the service, things happened. There was a couple big chances. Ugbo had a good look in the first half. Larin had a huge look in this first half where he could have easily put the game, kind of out of reach earlier. But ultimately, I think you're going to need more service. And I think that's where Ismail Kone and Stefano Eustáquio. Kone had a phenomenal game. And I'm just thinking, man, imagine if he had a bit more support around him, because it felt like Kone was doing such a great job of linking up with his teammates. But then there wasn't always that support from the front. It was always to his sides and not always vertically. So I think, going forward, you kind of have 2 choices against top teams. Either you go 2 strikers, so you back yourself with either combination of David Larin. It could be
David
Ugbo Larin.
Yeah,
I don't think you drop David, but you can also do Ugbo Larin. You could go Ugbo David, which I think would be a partnership that works very well. But you only do 2 of them. You go 3-5-2, or this is something where, again, it's a bit bold. You go 4-3-3, and you end up dropping two of them, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I think the more likely idea is you go 3-5-2.
What about a 4-2-3-1? But 4-2-3-1, but David would have to be the 10. Do you like that, or but do we have two proper like sixes that can play in that double pivot?
I mean, you can. I'd honestly like to see it tried.
Yeah.
I think it's something where in theory it makes sense, but we'd have to see how it would respond if you're going to go a 4-2-3-1. Just because again, it depends how much support David's giving the midfielders and where the midfielders are. This game tactically was a bit hard to tell because I think what we saw was the tactical scheme was basically the CBs had to step every time the strikers on TNT got the ball, and I think it led to the game being a lot more stretched. But Canada kind of wanted that in a weird way, and for the most part, it did actually work, other than one or two breakdowns. But yeah, I think 4-2-3-1 could be something to look at as well. But yeah, that's the kind of thing I feel like either way, none of those solutions include three up top, because I think Canada, it showed in this game, just having that third midfielder I think would have made a world of difference. And you kind of even felt it later in the game where he wasn't playing as a third midfielder, but even just having someone with that profile on the field like Schwanier at wingback, I think also helped the game immensely.
Now I want to go lead into the back line for a sec, but I did want to just see a comment. It was wondering why Miller didn't come on. Oh no, that was not it. I don't know. It was asking about Liam Miller. I was told that he had a bit of a knock, and that was the reason that he wasn't fully fit for this game. So gave an opportunity to a Schaffelberg. I think I'm assuming Liam Miller would have came off the bench if fully fit, but that's just what I was told. Maybe not. But regardless, Schaffelberg came off the bench. He looked very good. We're gonna get into the subs after this, Alex. I just wanted to put that out there, and I want to look at the back line. Now, Biello coming out here and picking this roster for one single elimination match. Like I said, I think it was bold, and I liked it. But then that just required a situation where you're going to play players together that aren't used to it, especially in the back three where we saw that. We saw Waterman, Johnston, and Miller, and yes, they may have some chemistry through their CF Montreal days, but they don't play week in, week out together, and they have not played yet for the national team. So this was the first look at them, and my initial reaction was that they looked a little shaky together. Alex, I know you don't always like you've been talking about getting Johnston out of that outside right center back position for a while. I thought Waterman looked a little questionable at the back, and I thought Kamal Miller got burnt 2 or 3 different times throughout this game. So I want to know what your opinion was on the back three, and I see some people in the chat saying that the back three was scaring them a little bit, and they look like a few players that obviously have not had a lot of time playing together. So do you agree with that? I think they started to find their legs towards the second half, but like I mentioned, I think Kamal had a bit of a tough day, and the speed of Garcia was definitely causing them quite a bit of trouble.
Yeah, I think I was a bit torn on the back three, I think, because I think we saw a lot of the weaknesses, 100%. I think the clear weakness looking at, the big weakness looking at it was the speed.
Mm-hmm.
You look just because, again, Waterman, not the fastest guy, but he was fast enough, but you kind of saw it on that Garcia chance where when it comes to one-on-one, legs are stretched, it's always going to be tough, right? And I think that's, again, where maybe a Bombito would have been a bit of an asset. And then we also saw, another thing that stood out too was positioning. Positioning was one where, again, I think this was tactical, so it's fully hard to put it on the back three, but it was very aggressive, which again, I thought was a bit strange because if your back three doesn't have the speed, usually you're better off just dropping a bit, being a little less aggressive and compensate for that with your positioning, right? Because as you saw, I think the Levi Garcia chance, the breakdown was TNT won the first ball. Joel Waterman stepped because I think, again, I don't think that was him. That was the instruction because I saw it many times from Miller and Johnston as well, was to step. But then TNT played a 1-2. Garcia got him behind, and then it was just he was cooked, right? There's no other way to put it. So I think those two weaknesses, the issue is the back three, it didn't really fit what was being asked of them. And I think that's kind of the theme we had heading into it, that, look, if you're going to ask this back three to play in possession, they were great. I think Waterman was really good on the ball and added a bit of something. With Crepeau back there, I thought Canada was so comfortable building out. And there were a few times where I was like thrown off to see Canada bring the ball back to Crepo and build out, because we didn't see that very often with Milan Borjan was in the goal, when Steven Vittoria was back there as well. But yeah, I think you saw it on the flip side, some of those weaknesses as well. Aerially, there were a few moments where Canada was looking a bit shaky, and that's something as well. We mentioned Alistair Johnson not being the most proficient aerially. So I think, look, we saw some of the weaknesses that this group could provide, and I was a bit surprised that they went with that overall group, considering what they were asking of them.
Yeah, at the end of the day, though, they did get it the job done. Guys, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section. If you're just joining us in the chat, be sure to drop a like, say hello, celebrate. Let me know how you guys are feeling. It was a very nervy game for me yesterday. I felt like I couldn't breathe until we finally got that goal, but we got the result, and I want to hear from you guys as well. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. I agree with your points there, Alex, but I do want to go over to the substitutions, because it was funny. That first substitution was Schaffelberg, and it was right after Kyle Larin scored. So I was doing the watch along yesterday, and it was just hilarious. Like, I watched it back and listened to myself explain what I thought was going to happen, and then I said that I assumed Biello was probably going to take off Ugbo, just because, like I said, they got the lead. He's one of those strikers that he's not going to get a lot of touches. He's not going to be overly involved in the match. But yeah, wait for your opportunity. He's a great one to have on. Now that we have the lead, I thought that the natural substitution would be to take him out, put David back up front with Larin, and then put in probably like a Piet, maybe like a Schwanier, you know what I mean? Like, just to get that three-man midfield. That was like my natural thought. But instead, Biello completely ruins my thought process. I think he did take off Ugbo, but he put on Schaffelberg, which then pushed Davies into the 10, pushed David up front, kept the same, like the two holding midfielders, and then Schaffelberg went at the left wing back. So complete opposite of what I thought he was doing. At the end of the day, like, it worked, but it did open up a can of worms about Davies playing in the middle. And I want to get your thoughts on that, because when I watch Davies play at Bayern, and this isn't groundbreaking information, he's filled in that team with other stars, which I think allows him to play his position and his role without really thinking about it, knowing like, this is my job, this is what I have to do, and this is where he shines. I often find with the Canadian side, when you see Davies kind of roam a little bit more, it's when he's a little bit more frustrated. It's when he wants the ball more, he wants to create things on his own. It goes into the realm of hero ball, and he puts himself out of position. And I don't think he did that too much. There was times, just because we were doing like they were using both flanks in this game. But once he's in the middle, he pretty much just got licensed to roam around. So I just want to get your thoughts, Alex, of that substitution. Did you see it coming? Because like I said, I thought I saw something completely different. And also, he's getting roasted in the chat right now on set pieces. Again, another can of worms you and I have talked about so many times. Davies shouldn't be over set pieces. It is what it is. He's the biggest name on this team. If he keeps pushing for set pieces, unless someone tells him, hey, you're completely off of them, I think he's going to keep taking them. But yeah, I think the stat was like 11 corners at halftime. and Eustachio wasn't doing that much better either, but Steph is still a better over set pieces. But anyways, I gave you a lot of information there. Let me know your thoughts on Davies this game, playing in the middle, and of course set pieces.
Oh, look, I'll just pick up set pieces.
Okay.
Fresh. I mean, look, Eustachio and Davies weren't delivering well, so maybe it's just an issue where just go short, guys. Let's just save the, save pumping in, because that's the thing. Like, every delivery was so flat and right on top of the keeper. Which, if you have height and you're like, maybe it's like more of an EFL League One strategy where you've just got like 4 6'4" Donnies packed on top of your keeper and you're just whipping in near post. Maybe I get it, but Canada didn't have that size. So I was disappointed by all delivery all around. So maybe it's something where you just start going short every time, because maybe there just isn't someone who can deliver the ball they need, period. And they're just, they had 14 corners. Imagine how many shots he could have gotten if you went short on more of those. That's kind of all I have to say. Because again, it's more personnel than setup this time, because it's just, again, deliveries. As for Davies in the middle, I mean, I didn't really feel too plussed about it, because I think the way they were treating their wingbacks in this game were like wingers. Davies and Buchanan were rarely asked to track back. It was a true back three, and I think that tactically that made sense, because TNT didn't have much wide threat. It was always 2, maybe 3 guys going forward. You have a back three, you're confident they go 1v1 in that situation, and for the most part they did. So it didn't surprise me that Schaffelberg ended up going wing back. just because I think they were treating them like a winger. But it did surprise me that they didn't go like I thought it would have been like take off Buchanan, throw in Schaffelberg at the wing back. I was a bit surprised that it was then moved Davies to the 10, but I think also Davies was barely enough at the 10 for it to really register, because I think he was there for 5-10 minutes and then they took off Buchanan and then he was right back out at wing back anyways by the end of the game. So look, I think we, not to add too much on that 10 point, because I think we've kind of seen it, until he improves the side of that game where he's able to really draw players in, play 1-2 touch, and then break lines, which again, it's a tough skill. That's like something that a lot of the top 10s do. It's not a knock on Davies if he doesn't have that in his game right now, just especially because he's so used to playing out wide. It's always going to be tough for him as a 10, just especially with this style where his dribbling is always something where he's so good at making defenders lunge at him, make him make those step and then beat them with speed. It's hard to do that in the middle when it's so clogged, so congested. Sometimes in the middle you want that close control, right? That's why a guy like Koenig is so good, because he can just, the ball sticks to him. It's so close to him. He knows how to kind of glide and wiggle around people. So look, I didn't think we saw Davies moved out there pretty quick too. So I think that's something that Biello probably saw, and he moved Jason Russell-Rowan in the midfield, and that ended up, or not in the midfield, into the middle, and that ended up being a bit of a great sub as well.
Yeah, we're gonna get into Russell-Rowan in a second, and I agree, and I think that's the reason we often, because I know a lot of the viewers here have complained over the last little bit about Osorio and how they don't really like him in the starting 11, and how does he keep finding his way in there. And I think it's because he's the closest thing to like a natural 10 that Canada has. So when they're looking for like a little creativity and something that Osorio has in his lockers, he can pick out that clever, like, I call it like a 10 pass, like that little through ball, that little, I mean, Gio Reyna did 2 of them, for example, in that game against Jamaica. You know, the goal he set up right both times. That is what a proper number 10 can do. In tight spaces, just a very clever little pass to put a striker through on goal. That is what you want. I don't think Davies has that in his locker. Like you said, like he is a good dribbler, but he doesn't have that pass. He doesn't have that like awareness to be a natural number 10. He's not. He's a winger growing up, and now he's a left back, left wing back. So I often get frustrated when I see him in there, because I just think he doesn't do a whole lot in the middle, but he wants the ball all the time. But I want to go to the 2 substitutes that came on. I mean, our mullet man, Jacob Schaffelberg, is in great form right now at club level. Scored a couple of bangers against Inter Miami not that long ago. I think he had 3 in the CONCACAF Champions Cup in their short run. And of course, he just scored an absolute beautiful goal. He looked dangerous basically the entire time since he came on. And Russell Rowe, I also found, looked really, really good as well. I find it interesting that in Wilfried Nancy's 3-4-2-1 system, you see Russell Rowe kind of play a little bit under the striker in that dual kind of 10. He's got freedom to go up as well. And I kind of thought that's what he was playing for a little bit. Like he's playing just under the striker. But so what did you make of the 2? The comment here is thought Russell Rowe was fantastic as a 9.5. Him and David in that hole were so tough on the defenders. So I thought that it was great to see him. And I also thought that we were maybe going to see like a Bear instead of a Russell Rowe. But I mean, we brought 5 strikers. It was great seeing him come on and obviously doing a job.
Yeah, I mean, look, for 5 strikers, 4 of them played. I think that's about as much as you can expect in a game like this. Would have loved me some Bear, but I mean, if Yellow used all 5 strikers in a game like this, that probably would have meant they were losing. So, no, jokes aside, what I saw from Russell Rowe is why I like his ceiling so much as a player, and I think why Biello maybe called him in. Even though he's only had a handful of games, because you see it with Columbus, he reads the game so well. Like he genuinely does. I think that's probably also why he's gotten a lot of trust and minutes from Wilfried Nancy, because as we know, Nancy wants such specific things from his attackers, and it's tough, especially to play as one of the whole players, right? Like we saw it when under CF Montreal, there was only really a few players who could play in those positions, like Georgi Mihailovic and whatnot back in the day. And yeah, I think Russell Rowe, he reads the game so well, and I think that's exciting because he also has all the tools of a pure number 9. He can shoot on both feet. He has great movement. But he also has speed to get in behind and cause a threat. His finishing is improving massively. I know, of course, Armin from One Soccer wrote it last week, mentioning maybe that's just the Cucho Hernandez effect, training every week with the because Cucho Hernandez, for my money, is probably one of the best ball strikers in MLS. Maybe just being around that has helped Russell Rowe a lot. And as we see here too, he has the intelligence, the ability to drop in. I think if you watch that Schaffelberg goal is great, but it doesn't happen if Russell Rowe doesn't take out like 2 defenders. I think it was with his turn. I think TNT maybe all game were kind of used to the ball hitting Laren and Ugbo, and they were a bit more like back to goal. Let's back them down, be physical, and they kind of thought they could step on Russell Rowe. And he's like, look, I can turn and take you guys out. So no, I really like Russell Rowe's game, and I'm curious to see how he evolves, because there's a lot of ceiling there, and he's still super, super young. I think he's like the second or third youngest guy on this Canadian team, other than Luke de Fougerolles, who I'm sure we'll talk about later in the ramifications of him seeing the field. As for Schaffelberg, I don't have as much to say, just because he stretches out games. That's why Nashville, he's so good there, because they always love to sit a little deeper, play a bit more defensive, and he just stretches the game out so well with his speed. But as we're seeing now, there's just a new element to his game, because that speed was always there. He kind of joked about it, right? Like, I was a speedster. I'm a pace merchant. He's almost joked at times, but now he's not just a pace merchant, because he's got a heck of a left foot, and his right foot's getting a lot better too. He saw it. He almost scored from 30 yards in this game too, like off kind of a nothing ball. And you see the vision too, where he's starting to find little crosses, little passes. He's just improving the overall areas of his game while keeping his pace. And I think that's exciting, because there's nothing tougher to defend than someone who can run at you, is decisive, wants to shoot, wants to take you on, wants to make things happen. And that's Schaffelberg right now.
Absolutely. Schaffelberg nearly took the post down yesterday. And I agree. And I've said it a few times that, because like after he puts in performances like this, and even the ones that we've seen in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, when he's scoring goals, you get the natural, like, how do we fit him in the starting 11? And I don't really think that's Schaffelberg's best role right now. The thing I love him the most about him is when you bring him on, he brings nothing but energy. He just wants to take on defenders. He, like you said, he can hit it. He can change a game, and we've seen it with the national team, especially. I think the Gold Cup was a good example of that as well. Like when he took on the United States, he was so hard to do, and he came on this game as well. It just is a different. I don't know how he would do from the beginning. I'm not against seeing him, but I think having that in your back pocket, like, all right, we need something, bring on a Schaffelberg against some tired legs who can create problems. It is not an issue at all for me. So I think Schaffelberg is doing everything right now at club level as well as with the national team to continue to get these calls, because before this roster came out, we had debates of who Schaffelberg is battling with. You have a Liam Miller, who maybe an injury is the reason Schaffelberg came on today. Maybe not. Maybe he's going to go with Schaffelberg anyways. Regardless, he's showing why he's here. You have a Brim who's left at home, someone who's playing the top flight in the Netherlands. And he's versatile. He can play on the wing. He can play up striker. He's another tough player to leave at home. But Schaffelberg is doing it right, and from what we just saw from him today, I can almost promise you, like, he's doing everything possible to be in that Copa America squad. And he's got an excellent mullet, and the fans love him. And he's an energetic guy. I can't imagine what it's like to have him come on the pitch. I just feel like he gives the team a bit of a lift. And you saw it from the way he scored the goal. And I don't know. I'm a big fan of Schaffelberg, and I love seeing him get rewarded like this.
Yeah, and I think this was huge for him too, because I think what it shows is that you have to remember in a 23, right? Like, not everyone's going to play. Not everyone's going to play across a tournament. Not everyone's going to start. You only have 11 starters. When everyone's healthy, we have to remember that one of Richie Larea, Tejan Buchanan, Alistair Johnson are probably going to get benched. There's someone with one of like a Sam Adekugbe might end up being benched. You talk about midfield between some of the options, like between an Ahmed and a Chouanier. One, if not both, could be benched. Like, there's always going to be guys who end up on the bench. So the key is who can come in and disrupt the game. And Schaffelberg 100% has that profile. I think that's immensely valuable. That, okay, maybe in your best 23 when everyone's healthy, he might not be a name you're putting in because of pedigree. Like, oh, you got options like playing in the Eredivisie. You got options playing elsewhere that you left home, La Liga and Theo Corbianu. But look, if Schaffelberg's continuing to prove that he can be a disruptive force off the bench, that puts him ahead, right? That gives him an option. I think, yeah, it's something where I'd be surprised to not see him in the Copa America now, because, if you're playing a Peru and a Chile, it's a tight game. He's all of a sudden I'm thinking of him being someone who can come on and disrupt, because he's kind of shown this fearlessness of, I can do this against Inter Miami and a Messi. I can do this in a must-win game against TNT. I can do this at a Gold Cup against the US where Canada was against the ball or against the wall. He's also showing like this fearlessness of, yeah, I can kind of just do it against any opponent. And I'd love to see him in these June friendlies too. Like, can he do it against the Netherlands? Like, if he can do it against the Netherlands, I'm going to be even more sold. And I think, look, there's a nice niche too. I don't even need to be thinking of, oh, push him into it as a starting role. Just keep him in as a super sub, because what he brings is something so different that a lot of guys don't have, and I think that can be immensely valuable for Canada.
Absolutely. I'm just cracking up here. So I was going to bring up Armin, and I can't remember. Oh, yeah. So I'm assuming next week, Alex, Armin's going to give us the task of coming up with our projected 23-man squad for the Copa America. I think that's going to be very, very difficult to do. Like you just said, I mean, we've got 23 players right here. We mentioned players that left at home. You have injuries. You have Ahmed, who was left out. You have Osorio, Atakubi, Larea. It is going to be so difficult, man. And I just know that's going to be one of our videos next week that you and I are probably going to have to sit down and do it. So let's not give any, let's not tease anything away, because I think that will be a video. And then I thought of Armin, and then I went to this picture because this got quite the attention yesterday on social media. The disappointment of the others. 821 likes. Some of the comments were pretty funny. But Armin was definitely contemplating, had a few different designs he wanted to see what he would go with, and he went with this one. So it was nice. It was good to see. There's some fun stuff. I'm gonna leave it up actually for right now. But we're gonna go in the chat now, guys. So if you're just joining us today, be sure to drop a like. Oh, just like it right there. Hit that like button. Help out the channel and let us know what your guys' thoughts are. Julian says what Alex is describing is a great problem to have. For years, there was no question who our starting 11 should be. Absolutely. There is tons of depth. I think it's very difficult to come up with different starting 11s, especially when you have players that are doing just incredible things at the club level. It makes it really hard. So another player that actually we didn't see, obviously, was Bombito. Do you think we're gonna see him get any time? So let's touch on Bombito, and then let's touch on Luc de Fougerolles. So a big shout out in the chat. I'm going to put a W in there. Goes out to Luc de Fougerolles, who gets his first international cap for the Canadian national team. I believe, Alex, technically right. He's still not cap tied. I think because he could play like, I think, one or two more games, and then he could just leave, right? Like, but if he goes to Copa America this summer, he's 100% cap tied. And the way that Biel was speaking about him being the future, I would imagine he's going to be in our Copa America squad. Just, I guess, a sneak peek there. But maybe give me your thoughts on what a big moment it was. I know it was in the 90th minute he came on, but he is such a talented youngster. I'm so happy that he got this cap, and there's no doubt in my mind that I think I think he's going to be in the Copa America, which will cap tie him, and he will be a future for this team going forward. So will Bombito.
Yeah, well, I think let's just clear the air, just because I saw there was some. I was scrolling through the timeline last night, and there was some confusion.
Yeah.
But I put it out in my original tweet. I think when he came on. He's now cap tied until March 23rd, 2027, provisionally, because, of course, under the new rules established a few years ago, when you make your first appearance and you're under 21, you're cap tied for 3 years. Whereas if you made the appearance past 21, then you're cap tied permanently. So, of course, he's 18. This is his first cap, competitive. He's cap tied for 3 years. For him to be permanently cap tied, he needs to either make an appearance after the age of 21, or he needs to make 4 appearances. So they have 2 more competitive appearances that he can have. But then say he makes 1 competitive appearance, right, say in June or something like that, then what happens to the clock is that the 3 years starts from that next cap, right? So I think an example of that is Stefan Mitrovic, who technically he could still represent Canada, but because his last cap came in 2023, he has 2 caps for Serbia. He wouldn't be able to switch to Canada till summer of 2026. So de Fougerolles now, he's cap tied through the 2026 World Cup. As for the Copa America, I'd have to see, because I think there are some different rules about guest nations at a tournament. And since CONCACAF is technically a guest nation at CONMEBOL, I'll have to see what the regulations are on that. But yeah, even if he goes and makes another competitive appearance, it just adds more time for him to be cap tied. So it's a big win, because you see what's over the next 3 years. It's a Copa America. it's a World Cup. You'd have to imagine they end up permanently cap tying him now between now and the next 3 years, especially if he ends up breaking into Fulham more regularly.
There's a ton of information there, Alex, but that, like, very good. I didn't even think of that. I just, it is a major tournament, but it's not our major tournament, so that's interesting. I'm going to be curious to see what you dig up, because I'm sure you're going to find something. But yeah, regardless, it does seem very likely that he is going to play for us, and hopefully more caps will come in the near future. He's a special talent, and I'm really excited to see the way he's going to grow his game, both at the club level as well as the international level. And I was really excited to see him come on yesterday. We got a couple questions coming on. We got Sloppy Joe, who says, late to joining. Any discussion about the 3-man back to mid formation to break the low block made life tough on Waterman and Miller, who did well, all things considered. So we touched on that a little bit. I don't know, is there anything else you want to add to that, Alex, quickly?
Yeah, I think I thought Waterman had a good game. I think I'll put that out there. I know there was some mixed reaction on his performance, but I thought he did what he can bring in that middle of that back three. Like, I thought he was very good on the ball. He actually won a bunch of his aerials, which was good, right? Because that was something of worry. You don't have Vittoria. Are you going to win? What the aerial presence going to be like? I thought he was very good, all things considered, because like we mentioned off the top, it was a bit unfair of him, like the speed, because again, he's not a Moise Bombito. He's not a speedster. But I think other than that, he had a very good game. And I think that shouldn't be forgotten all this, because this was pretty much his second start, and his only other start for Canada was against Bahrain in a kind of just an MLS friendly against a out of window team. This was nice to see him step up in a game like this. And really, I think again the back three was more. I thought Johnston struggled a bit again at wide center back. I mean, for example, just to throw it out there, because I was watching the game earlier today again, and it was fresh in my mind. The chance where Levi Garcia could have easily changed the game, the 1-0, right? Early first half. The breakdown there was actually that Johnston, he made a huge overlapping run like a wing back. He crossed the ball into the box. He was actually out of play at the byline because he made such a deep run, so that Waterman naturally, and maybe this is again a bit of a mistake on Waterman, but I think it was the tactical ideology. Go watch this play back if you can. Waterman steps up like they were supposed to do all game. And then Garcia ran right into the space that was left by Johnston, and then they ended up getting the chance. I think it's harsh on Johnston to say that's his fault, because I think also Tajon Buchanan, if you're a wingback and you see your center back go, or if you're a CM like a Stefan Eustachio, maybe you cover. But I thought that was an interesting play. So yeah, I think the back three again, it was less personnel, it was more, or it was less the system, it was more what they were asking of the players in that back.
Well, Sloppy Joe agreed and says that I totally agree. Johnston wants to cook. He's not the ideal. But I said that before the game too. I said, especially in a game where Canada's going to have so much possession, you're going to see Johnston make those runs. It doesn't matter that he's at the outside right center back. He's going to make those runs. I saw him make an overlapping run, I think 2 or 3 different times this game, because he can. Because odds are we're going to probably get that ball back, but if not, then you'll see a dangerous counter because of space that's left open. But you're right, Alex. You need to have the awareness, because there could have been 2-3 different players that could have covered for him when he goes on those runs. But I think it just kind of goes to our point, and especially your point of not really wanting to see him there. Like, you're not going to. Not that there's nothing wrong with your outside. I mean, look at Inter Milan; they do it all the time. Their outside center backs are very important to the build-up play. But there's times that could really punish you, especially against teams that are a little bit more quality than a TNT does.
Well, just to quickly piggyback off that point, Inter also thrives in that because their midfield cover is always very good, and they have defensive-minded wingbacks, right? They have guys like Darmian, who always does such a great job of covering because he has that experience playing as an outside CB. Pavard sometimes when he's playing wingback does a great job. And look, I think that's the important thing, just to kind of end off this discussion with Johnston at CB. It's less Johnston being bad at CB, which is also like the thing, because he's not bad at CB. He's very good in possession. He actually had some really good moments in possession. Again, that's the strength of him at a back three. I think it's also just a disservice because he would be so much better as a wingback, because that's his best attributes of his game. His crossing is really underrated. I think he's fit, so he can go up and down the field and give you more defensive cover while also still bringing you offensive cover. And I think for me, what I think it's important to mention when I want to say get Johnston out of the back three, it's It's because I want to see him at fullback or wingback. I think he can be even better in those positions, as we see for Celtic, as we've seen for Montreal. So I think that's also important to remember.
I agree. I do want to just, because you opened the door to the Inter Milan discussion there. The thing I like the most about when their fullbacks, it's just a very fluid system. When their fullbacks attack, you see Barella, you see Darmian, you see whoever. Like as soon as one goes, it's just immediate without thinking. Like Barella is so good at sitting back and covering position, which allows them part of the Villa. But anyways, we kind of touched on that. But it's just it's having the awareness to be able to pick up on that. And if AJ is going to keep doing those runs, someone has to do it. It has to be basically Eustachio's job, if not Tejan's. But I think in a game
where a natural 6 comes in too, right? If you play more of a 6, you can naturally cover, because Eustachio's Kone always want to play on the front foot because they want to be more 8s, right?
Yeah, it's I don't know. Barella, I love watching Inter play. There's so much, like there's so much fun the way that they play, but they're also so intelligent. And Inzaghi has them playing where it is, if any player on that pitch makes a movement, there's a reaction by everyone. It's so fun to watch. That like it's fluid football. But anyways, you got me on that. But all right, gonna move on to a couple other comments. I do want to go on Maxime Crepeau as well, because I thought he had a pretty good game. I thought he looked very comfortable with the ball at his feet. He made 2 or 3 saves. I'm trying to remember. I mean,
2, I think it was
2. Like I remember the one, like the bullet that kind of went straight at him, and he had the one where I think it was Garcia who cut in, and it was a pretty comfortable save. And I thought he maybe made one more, but regardless, I thought it's as good as a performance you're going to see. He looked comfortable. It showed his shot stopping, what he can do there. Like we said, we always knew that he was good with the ball at his feet. And every time that seems like his name comes up, it's always his size always gets thrown back into his face, which I think is so unfair. It's like, oh yeah, like he's not tall enough. He's like, and I saw it in the comment section when we were talking about who we should start, and they're like, it's got to be Dane. It's got to be Dane. Like Crepeau's just not tall enough, and I just think the way that he plays, that like it doesn't really matter. Like he's an excellent shot stopper. I can't think back on a ton of goals where you look at him like, oh, it's because he's not 6'6". Like that goal went in. Like he's very good positionally. He's good with the ball at his feet, which will absolutely help. And you touched on that a little bit as well, Alex. And I think he's a bit of a calming presence back there. I liked everything about his game. It wasn't like it was the busiest game out there, but I have no complaints about Crepeau. So I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to add, but I think most in the comment section after this game could agree. So let me know in the comments, guys, what you think. As a couple others said that he was calm and cool.
I think what I like about Crepeau is he's such a good preventative player, if that makes like it. I'm completely making up a term here, but like he's so good at like being proactive, which I think is huge as a goalkeeper. Like he's never reacting to what's going on around him. And I think, again, I rewatched the first 66 minutes this morning. I would have loved to watch the first 90. That was all I was able to squeeze in before hopping on here. So I got right up to the goal and the subs, which I think is good. That gave me a chance to kind of reassess the starting 11 and whatnot. There were about 4 or 5 chances where Canada nearly got burned on the high line. They maybe made a risky header. Maybe there's a dangerous-ish ball over the top, and Crepeau cleaned it up. And I think that's why you want from a sweeper. That's kind of the risk, or that's why you play a high line with the sweeper keeper, because there are moments where you're very close to getting breached, and that's where the sweeper keeper comes in, where that ball, that if he sits back, the attacker beats him to it. Or if he's in the wrong position, the attacker ends up pouncing. And I think that's what was really great about Crepeau, is that maybe he only made 2 saves in this game, but there were about 4 or 5 moments just from those 66 minutes I watched where he prevented dangerous chances from happening just with his awareness to know when to step up and make a clearance, or with just the reactions that he makes. And I think that's why he's so good as a sweeper, because look, he's a good shot stopper, but also if you're a goalkeeper, if you're limiting the chances that you're facing, it's always going to be much easier. Would you rather face 16 shots, or would you rather face 2? You'd rather face 2, because I think in that case, that means you have a better chances of keeping a clean sheet. You have a better chance of winning. So I think that's what I really liked. Otherwise, I thought he was good in the air. The only chance where he really missed it is when he came out, but then there was a foul, so it's not really his fault. There was one late in the game where he punched it, and I thought maybe he could have done a better job of catching. But look, he was confident in his punch. They got it out of danger. They didn't end up getting too much trouble on it. So, no, I really liked what I saw from Crepeau's game, because I think there were a few moments where look, I think if you ask Borjan to save the 2 shots Crepeau did, I think Borjan saves them. But where Crepeau really had the advantage, there was a few moments in his sweeping where he completely cleaned up dangerous chances that it could have been disastrous for Canada. So I thought that was great. But I'm curious to see where this goes going forward, because I would like to see St. Clair at least get an audition, because he's having a
Yeah.
very good season with Minnesota. And look, I'd also love to see Sirwal get a look, but I think if Crepeau is going in and being the number one in heading into Copa, I'm very fine with that. And I think he showed yesterday with some of the smart movements, and he had. And also the last point, there was there was a moment in the 30th minute. It is so nice to have someone like him who is comfortable rolling and passing the ball into the center backs and not having it constantly be hold on, pick up the ball, hold on, and boot it 60 yards to ask Laren to take it down. I think that was something that was also nice to see him just actually build out the back post.
Yeah, I mean that's the number one thing we've always said. Like this goes back years of why Crepeau makes sense. It's just, you know, his distribution, his ball when the ball's at his feet, he's calm, he makes the right decision, and that goes a long way in the modern game. As simple as that. On top of that, like we mentioned, he's a good shot stopper. He's a leader as well. We've seen him wear the armband over the years. Like he brings a lot of really good qualities, and I think it's important to. I do hope that, you know, Sirois and St. Clair get opportunities, but I think right now with such a big tournament coming up, fast approaching, I think BL should just make it clear. Like, you know, you're my guy. There's no confusion. You're gonna get the reps. You're going to play the Copa America, and then from after that, you know, because he is turning 30, the other two are quite a bit younger. Then maybe you kind of squeeze him into a couple friendlies, like that Mexico friendly, for example, could be a great opportunity to see maybe Dane start. That's just my thought. I like when keepers are confident and know that they're walking into the camp being like, hey, you know, these two are pushing me, but I know that, you know, I'm finally getting rewarded. And after years of him being on the back burner, it is really nice to see that. I think he's got that confidence right now where he walks in the camp, he's like, I'm the guy. And I like that. And
well, I think an interesting point is this one too. Maybe another scenario is, again, as the reporting per Josh Cloak of The Athletic, it looks like Canada's plan is to book a second Euro friendly before Copa. And I think now that they're in Copa, I think that you have to imagine that's even more clear. What you could also do is give Crepeau 90 versus the Netherlands, and then maybe in the other game, because you imagine maybe it's a lesser team, unless they somehow get an even bigger team than the Netherlands, and then maybe you give St. Clair and Sirois 45 each against the other team. I think that sends the message that, look, Crepeau, you're still the number one. You got the bigger game, the 90 against the Netherlands, to prove yourself. You're going to be our guy going into Copa. But then you also start to give Sirois and St. Clair looks like, look, Crepeau is 30. We know that we want to have that competition so that you guys keep pushing him. And if you do, you know, outperform him, there's also a chance for them to slot in. Because I think also if you're looking at 2026, between those three, there's a scenario where there's each a scenario where one of them is a number one in 2 years' time. So you also want to play it in your hands where you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, and then maybe in 2 years you're like, oh, maybe we should have given St. Clair more looks, Sirois more looks. So I think they would be interested to see them balance it like that.
yeah, I agree. Julian's excited. And second friendly, imagine we get another big hitter too. Like, and I don't like. I mean, we got the Netherlands. I don't really. I could care less really what the.
I'm like, I saw some people saying Wales or like Greece. I'd love either of those. I think those would be great tests. Like maybe, yeah, it's not a top 10, 5 to 10 European team, but I think those would be also good. And that's what Canada needs. It's like kind of, you know, those teams like a Wales, Greece were good. If they have experience. I'd be very curious to see who it is.
Well, because if you think of it that way, if you have like when Canada is going to play Argentina and the Netherlands, they're going to approach both of those games very differently than when they're going to play Chile and Peru. So if you can get like a nation like a Wales, that's maybe a similar quality level to one of the other two teams we're playing in the Copa America, then then they're probably going to attack those games a little bit differently. Now, obviously, you attack every game a little bit differently, but you get what I mean. Mm-hmm. You're going to expect a more head-to-head battle against like a Wales and that kind of level than you would against the Netherlands. But the Netherlands and Argentina will be a great opportunity to show what this Canadian side is made of. But they're going to have to probably sit back quite a bit, soak up pressure, and they're going to have to take that game a lot differently than they're going to take the other one. So yeah, I don't need a big heavy hitter, but I would like a good solid nation. Wales is a perfect example. I would love to see if we can line up a friendly with a country with that kind of quality too. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it seems like another friendly is coming our way, which is fantastic, and hopefully we get some good preparation leading into the Copa America because it's gonna be fun. Canada should face Italy. I haven't even looked at who's available, but so Sloppy Joe says 100% agree with Josh right now. We need a mid team. Yeah, I mean, just, it's a similar battle. And I love that we got the Netherlands, man. I love that we got that friendly. That is going to be
That's a top tier
It
friendly.
is. I couldn't believe. I live in a community, a small community, but it's we've got a lot of Dutch people in our town, and you see when the Euros and World Cups were on, this town's always orange. So it was kind of cool to see that battle and talk to some friends who like the sport. But at the end of the day, I was extremely excited to see them take on an opposition that is just covered in quality. And then they get to go right into a match against Argentina, which will be, yeah, Ukraine would have been another, like, any nation like that, I'd be fine with. I don't need another, I don't think another giant. I'm fine with like a decent level. So, Alex, we have a couple minutes left here. We're trying to think of a nice way to close this off on final thoughts. I guess this kind of lead me in. Give me a player that, and I saw this question earlier too. So they asked, why do you think Cornelius didn't start and Waterman did? My opinion is that, and I said it before, I wasn't super comfortable watching Miller and Cornelius when I saw them play the last few times. I just didn't think they were gelling. And I think because of the form that Waterman is in and playing in that central center back role in a back three for CF Montreal, maybe it's the chemistry he's hoping he had with Miller and Johnson because he played. I don't know. But I would say more so than anything, I think Cornelius didn't get the nod just because of his last couple of matches for Canada, which maybe is a little bit harsh. Alex, what do you think? Do you think it was more tactics, or do you think Waterman is just, he thinks in better form right now with his club? Or do you think that Cornelius' performance had anything to do with the reason he didn't, like for Canada, had anything to do with the reason he didn't get the start?
I think it was probably the reason I saw Waterman. It's kind of what cause I think when I did my Biello projected lineup, I also had Waterman in. I think what it was because Waterman has the form because he's had a good start of the year to Montreal. Cornelius has been in good form as well, but because Malmo has been in cup run, but they haven't started their regular season yet. So the opposition they play it's very weird what they do in Sweden, by the way. It's like they do their entire cup before the start of the year. So like the final is right when Cornelius comes back from international break because they made it to the final, which is great. Chance for him to win a trophy. Keep an eye out for that if you have a chance. But because of that, it's everyone in Sweden, right? It's the Svenska Cupen. Some days it's 4th division teams, some days it's 1st division teams. I wonder if Biello kind of viewed him more in preseason mode. And my guess is maybe they competed over it in training and Waterman's form, and came into play. And then I think from there, the second bonus is familiarity. It was an all CF Montreal back three, Johnston, Waterman, Miller. Of course, Johnston didn't actually play the back three in that team because I guess it would have been Miller, Camacho, Waterman, Johnson at wing back because, of course, Waterman wasn't the middle of the back three until last year. But I think that familiarity also kind of pushed it over the edge where he was kind of thinking like, ooh, maybe Waterman's a bit more fit and there's the familiarity. Let's kind of go with that. So that's kind of how I read it. And I think for Cornelius, his chance to really push will be in that June window because by then he'll be in mid-season. And I think him and Waterman could have a real battle. We'll have to see what happens. We have to remember, it feels like the center back race is pretty wide open because I think Bombito is going to have a huge few months. And I think they need to, again, I would have loved to see him in this camp. He needs to have a look. Colorado struggled without him yesterday. And I think that's a big sign for him because sometimes you leave international break and you come back and your spot's lost. I think his spot will be there next week because they missed him certainly on the late goal they allowed. I saw they were just so wide open. I was thinking Bombito would fit in. So I think Bombito is going to have a huge next few months. Can't forget Lucas McNaughton. Zach McGraw's back and healthy, and his chemistry with Kamal Miller and Maxime Crepeau always will keep him in the discussion. Kyle Hebert's back and healthy. You never know. Maybe at the Whitecaps, maybe a Bilal Halbouni woman. Like there's so much that could go on between now and the next 3 months. So we'll keep a close eye because I think the battle could be so close between these guys. I think we've seen that with just even how much time we spent debating who would make the squad and now who would start. And I think there's still so much movement to come.
That's why I said I'm assuming next week, Alex, you and I are going to be asked to come up with our 23 player squad for Copa America. We'll have a lot of these debates in there. I think it's gonna be very difficult to do. I truthfully do because there's like 3-4 players that through injuries aren't on the squad, plus fitness issues and whatnot. So, well, we're gonna have to wait to see. But hopefully, guys, you enjoyed this live stream, and hopefully you enjoyed watching Canada qualify for their first ever Copa America this summer. It should be a lot of fun. Hopefully, get another friendly lined up, get the proper preparation, go into this tournament confident, happy, and hopefully do something special there. So, On your way out, guys, be sure to drop a like, drop a sub. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys soon. Cheers, friends.